I'm Father Garry Richmeier. I've been doing counseling for about 25 years now, and people often come to me talking about feeling down, kind of depressed, and they wonder what's wrong and they want to fix it. And so I thought I'd share today kind of some of my experience in what to do when you're feeling down with the blues, especially if it lasts a while. First of all, I want to say it's normal. Feeling down sometimes or feeling sad or depressed, that's normal. And it's caused probably by things we go through, things that are difficult, things that are painful. It's normal human stuff to feel bad about those things. But if it lasts too long, then it can get in the way of living life. And that's when people often turn to counselors or whoever to see what can make it different. So I thought I'd share kind of some things that could help kind of deal with the blues, deal with it kind of feeling down. People often think that it's like the flu. It just comes over us, depression, the blues, that we don't have too much control over it. Well, that's not quite true. It probably has to do with the events that happen in our lives and also with the thoughts we have about those events, the meaning we give to those events. So that is kind of where the blues comes from. Depression, sadness comes from quite a bit. And we can do something about those things. We can't do anything about the events that happen to us, the difficult times, but we can do something about our thoughts about those, the meaning we give to those events. And that can make a whole lot of difference in our emotions. Our emotions come from our thoughts, so we can do something about that. That's kind of where depression or the blues comes from, kind of in a nutshell. So what do we do about them? How do we kind of deal with them? Well, first of all, we need to just allow ourselves to feel bad about the difficult situations we're in or the painful situations we're in. If we don't allow ourselves to feel bad or sad or whatever, if we cover it up or we ignore it or we repress it, well, that's going to turn to depression. So first of all, it's normal. We just kind of have to admit, express it, share it, write about it. Why is that an awful experience? Why is I'm feeling bad? So that's the first thing. We can't just deny it or cover it up. Otherwise, it will turn to depression. Second thing we need to do, what's helpful to do, is to identify kind of what you think about the event or the situation. What meaning do you give that event? Sometimes we don't think about that. We don't kind of consciously think about what meaning we're giving it. For example, if I lose my keys, and it makes me frustrated. What am I thinking about that? Well, I might be thinking that, well, I'm an idiot. Okay. Or I might think, well, I may be getting Alzheimer's. Okay. Those thoughts kind of come in, and sometimes we don't even realize those things. But those thoughts are very important, the meaning we give to the event, because our emotions come from those thoughts. If I think I'm getting Alzheimer's, well, I'm gonna feel worse. I'm gonna feel awful. If I say, well, I just was distracted when I put my keys down, well, I'm going to feel differently. That's where we have to kind of evaluate kind of what we think about the event. What do I think about losing those keys? Is my thinking about that, is it realistic? Is that what I think about that? Is it probable? I'm getting Alzheimer's. Does it fit with my past experience? Is my thoughts about that event, is it realistic? Would somebody else think that same thing? A lot of times our thoughts about those events are not realistic, and yet they cause us problems. Oftentimes we come up with the worst case scenario meaning for any event. So we have to kind of do that. Another way is to kind of, what are 2 or 3 other possibilities for why that event is hurting us, is bothering us? Could it be, some other reason that I'm getting Alzheimer's or that I'm an idiot? I was just distracted when I put my keys down. See, we are able to change our thinking about those things. But, we are able to if we want to, but we have to be conscious of it. We have to be aware of it, of what we're thinking about whatever it is that we're encountering. Because our emotions come from our thoughts. For example, an example I use quite often is if I'm stopped at a traffic light and a friend of mine turns the corner and I wave at them. And the person, my friend, doesn't wave back. Okay, well, that's the event. So what do I think about that? Well, if I think that they are ignoring me, or if I think that, well, boy, they must be ticked off at me for not, for some reason, not waving at me, well, what am I going to feel? I'm going to feel anger. I'm going to feel sad. I'm going to feel depressed. I'm going to feel sad or whatever. However, if I think, oh, they just didn't see me, well, I'm not going to feel anger, sad, or anything else. I'm just going to say, oh, well, that's just the way it is. It's not going to affect my life at all. So it's very important kind of what we are thinking about a certain event. If I feel sad because I've lost a friend, I can be thinking, well, first of all, it's awful. It feels bad. But I can be thinking, well, it'll never change. I'm going to feel this way for the rest of my life. Well, that's a pretty heavy thought to be carrying around, pretty heavy burden. And it's not true. Things change. We will change. Our feelings will change. But unless we consciously think about that and say, no, that's not true. That's not accurate. Things will change. Unless we do that, well, we're going to be stuck with that awful feeling. So it's very important to be aware of when something happens to us, a very unpleasant thing. We lose a loved one, a friend moves away, we get ill, any of those things. To kind of keep track of what's our response to those things. What are we thinking? Do we think that, well, okay, I will get better at some point if I'm ill. Well, that feels better than if I say, I'm never going to make it. So we can kind of do something about our feeling down and blue. We can't make it all different. We can't avoid those unpleasant circumstances in our lives. We can't avoid those things. A lot of those things are losses. We lose. In this time of the pandemic, a lot of people have lost their routine, have lost the ability to go out and have a drink with friends, have lost their jobs, have lost loved ones to the virus. Loss is part of life, and it's an awful feeling. Now, what do we do with that? How do we think of that? And do we say, okay, well, that is part of life, and I work with that, and things will change eventually? Or do I say, no, it's gonna be this way forever, and I'll never make it? Well, then that's where we are stuck with that. Emotional work is ongoing. It's just like the work of staying physically healthy. We have to keep working at it. We have to, for physical health, we eat the right things, we eat healthy things, we do the exercise, we do all those things that we know are good for our health. And if we don't do those things, we gradually get unhealthy. Our emotional health is the same way. We have to do those things for our emotional health along the way. And if we don't, then our emotional health will deteriorate as we go. If we're depressed for a long time, that wears us out. It wears us down. that takes away our ability to make things different, to make our mood different, feelings different. So we need to kind of keep doing those things that help us stay emotionally healthy also. And sometimes when we get in long-term depression, well, maybe medication can help us take the edge off and give us, some ability to kind of do those things to get us back on track. But medication, in generally speaking, is not a long-term answer, unless there are other physical problems involved, like chemical imbalance in the body or something with the brain. Medication can't take the place of doing those things that help us have emotional health. We have to be, purposeful and intentional about working with these downers of life. Otherwise, they get the best of us. A lot of times in our culture, we use distraction, denial, avoidance to shield ourselves from those unpleasant situations. That's a recipe for prolonged depression. We have to face those. We have to admit that they're awful. And then we have to kind of do that work of working with them, dealing with them, so that they don't take over, so that they don't take over our emotions, our lives. So it's an ongoing work. It's an ongoing process. And it is hard work. It's hard work. But if we want to be healthy emotionally and don't want to be chronically depressed, then we have to do the work. That's kind of the core, I think, of working within ourselves of how to deal with those depressive things. Other things are important. Being connected with others, friends, connected with a therapist, maybe family, with our worshiping community. Being connected, relationship is healing, is helpful. So to reach out, to be with people, even if it's not just talking about whatever is depressing you, be with people. There's strength in numbers. It's healthy. It brings us life. Take care of your body, our physical health. Don't put toxic stuff in our body. Put good food, healthy food, exercise. One rule of thumb I have is when I'm overtaxed, when I'm overburdened mentally or emotionally, work the body. Endorphins help us feel better. So work the body. That can be helpful. Have some effective stress management techniques. What do you do with stress? How do you reduce that? Figure out how to do that. Stress can really drag a person down. So to address that, have a spiritual connection somehow. Spirituality is connection with the divine, connection with something bigger than ourselves is very important. So how do we do that? That can help. And also, finally, be kind to ourselves. Do something nice for ourselves. Treat ourselves once in a while, whether it's our favorite dessert or some vacation or time alone or whatever, quiet space is all our own. Whatever we find life-giving, a treat for ourselves, to do that, to be kind to ourselves, just like we'd be kind to anybody else who is having a tough time. There's nothing selfish about that. That is taking care of ourselves. That is reaching for help. So those are some of the things that are important from my experience of what to do with feeling blue, when things kind of get us down, depressed or whatever. It's work, but it pays off. It's valuable work. And if we kind of do some of these things, that can make the tough times, bad times a little bit less bad. There's no way to avoid all of that. But there's ways to kind of tweak it, adjust it, reduce it a little bit so we can manage. And that doesn't take over, and we have our emotional, mental health. So I hope this has been helpful. I wish you well, wish you health, physical, emotional, relational, and may God bless.